Today, I'm here with Rob Yingling. I am so excited, Rob, to have you on Toot Your Own Horn. Would you like to tell us about your beginnings with a woodwind instrument? Tell us more.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, I initially started out wanting to play the trumpet as an elementary school child in central Pennsylvania. We started instruments in elementary school in between third, fourth, fifth grade in that area. And a friend of mine up the block had decided that he was going to play trumpet. So he started the summer before third grade. He and I were kind of close, but also kind of in competition. So I decided that I wanted to play trumpet just like him. Well, our mothers got together and knew that we were kind of in a competition, different things, and that my playing trumpet might not be the best idea. And my paternal grandmother says, "Well, I have your dad's saxophone in our wardrobe at home, and you can try that out and see how that works." So, over from grandparents' house comes this case. I open it up, and of course, it's got that lovely, wonderful old instrument smell. It's silver. It's not a trumpet, and I can't make a sound out of it because it didn't have a reed on it at the time. Of course, I didn't know what it didn't. It meant to need to have a reed. So I'm looking at it. I'm disappointed. I just go, "What is this thing? It's ugly. It smells funny. It's heavy." And so my mother set me up with lessons through my friend's mother at a local music instruction place in our hometown of Altoona, Pennsylvania. Gentleman there, his name was John Santone, and he had taught my friend's brother and a couple other of their children how to play woodwind instruments. So,
Hang on a second, though. You said that you opened the case and it smelled funny and you were disappointed. So was it your mom that got you to keep going? Or are you just the kind of person that said, well, okay, I'll just do this anyway? Or like, what was it that got you? Because a lot of kids, when that would happen, would just be like, nah, I'm not doing this. Like, how was it you got over that hump?
well, I basically was told that I was going to do this because my grandparents had made the effort to keep a hold of the saxophone for 20 plus years after my father stopped playing in high school or so on. It had just sat in the wardrobe in their house, and they said, Robbie, this is your opportunity to learn to play an instrument. Your dad really enjoyed it, but here's a chance for you to go and do something with it. This is something that my grandparents wanted me to do. My parents wanted me to do, and once I got a read on it and I could make a sound out of it, I thought, hey, this isn't too bad. This makes a sound. I can do things with it. And the funny part is that my elementary music teacher, her name is Sarah Helsman.
Mhm.
Um, Years down the road, later on, after going through school, getting out, she comes up to me and says to me that I was the loudest alto saxophone player she had ever heard in her entire life. One day I recall sitting in our little elementary band class. I'm playing my horn. She's standing next to the trumpets. We had a couple trumpets in our little band, and she says, "Robbie, I can't hear Steve on his trumpet because you're playing so loud. Can you play softer?"
Wow.
I was just full of just gung ho play the horn at that
Wow.
time because I could do it.
Yeah. That's amazing because usually kids get in their heads, I want to play the trumpet or I want to play the saxophone or whatever it is, and they get
Mhm.
really disappointed and then they don't want to do it.
Well, I think I I would give credit to my parents, my grandparents, also, like I said, Sarah Helsman, my teacher John Santone, for instilling me the eventual outcome will be worth the pain of the practice and what you're going through now. Plus, I enjoyed the opportunity to go out and play with my friends and make music. So, I was first time I walk into my private teacher's lesson room, and he looks at me and he says, really, I usually don't start kids out on saxophone. I
Right,
usually start them on clarinet.
right.
And he says, but you're a pretty big boy. See, you can hold the saxophone. Let's start you on saxophone and see where this takes us. I was his only student, actually, that he ever started on saxophone first.
Wow.
And so I feel kind of special about that. I come to find years later that woodwinds weren't even his primary instrument. John, very competent and capable saxophone, clarinet, flute player, his primary instrument was the cello. So he
Oh,
played and gave lessons on cello, string bass, guitar. I didn't ever recall seeing him giving any like violin or viola lessons, but I do know that he was a very talented cellist with the Altoona Symphony Orchestra for a while.
mhm.
And so I like to blow people's minds when I say, "Yeah, I learned to play saxophone from a cello player."
That's awesome. How did it make you feel to play the instrument? Like, do you have any early memories of what really got you going? Like, what was it? What was it that made you really like decide that the saxophone was cool?
Well, getting out of class to go and play in the little band was fun. Just being able to hear how the different instruments come together, I thought that was interesting. The initial introduction to harmony and melody, rhythm, finding out how the different parts come together, and seeing some of the older kids that were in the group and how good they were becoming, and realizing that, hey, if I keep going with this, I could have this possibility of having fun with this too. Around this time, also, my next door neighbor heard me practicing playing. Well, everybody in the whole neighborhood could hear me practice.
Because you played so loud, I
Uh,
feel like.
well, yeah, especially in the summer, having the windows open and such. My next door neighbor was a very big fan of Glenn Miller.
Oh,
So he started introducing me to the Glenn Miller sound at that time. He says, "Oh, as a saxophone player, they've used a lot of saxophones in this group, and here, take a listen to this." And I thought, "Wow, that's some good stuff." And of course, it didn't hurt that my instrument repairman lived up the block from me as well. So if I ever had any problems with the saxophone, I could go up there, and he always heard me. If he didn't hear me practice for a while, he'd call and say, "Hey, something wrong with the horn? Do you need something fixed or something?" So uh, I had a whole neighborhood. They say it takes a village. Well, I had a neighborhood that was keeping an eye out on me for playing the instrument.
that's really lovely. I mean, that's really important, isn't it? Like if your windows had been open and some neighbor had said, "Hey kids, stop playing,"
Uh-huh.
that would have maybe changed your attitude.
It certainly would have, but as it were, I had a lot of support from my parents, my grandparents. Like I said, the neighbor, he certainly had a big influence on me getting to learn the swing idiom and get into jazz. So, small story about that is when I got married, for our reception, we had a big band that I was playing in at the time come in and play for our reception. But that was cool. But anyway, I was able to introduce my band leader to my neighbor to say, "Hey, the reason I'm in your band is because this gentleman here introduced me to Glenn Miller's music, which introduced me to swing, which introduced me to other big bands, and that's the start of that story."
Oh, that's really sweet.
So yeah, so I started in elementary school. In a little elementary school, we had about a dozen kids between stringed instruments, brass instruments, drums, what have you. And then going into junior high in seventh grade, I realized there was this thing called marching band
Hmm.
with uniforms, and we go to football games and we march around on the field, and I have to know where I'm at, and I'm playing music off of this little thing in front of me, and I gotta play that and watch where I'm going and not hit people. And I thought, hey, this is pretty fun. And it's a lot of work. Summer band is work, and especially when you go in for sectionals early, and it's
Hmm.
kind of scary.
Yep.
But got to meet other kids that were older, more advanced on their instruments, as well as some of the kids that I knew that were older from my elementary school that were in the upper grades as well. Uh, and also, that's my first introduction to joining a stage band in junior high. So we had a stage band with the standard big band uh, voicings, the saxophones, trombones, and trumpets, but uh, it was a pretty big band because we put more than one person on each stand just to give people the support, the comfort of knowing, well, I got somebody else there. If I don't get this, they'll probably get it, or so on and so forth. And that was comforting and also supportive, coming up and learning to say, okay, well, here's how the different horn parts come together. Uh, Intonation really needs to be important there as well. So there were a couple of charts that there were some exposed saxophone parts that, oh boy, thinking back on it now is a little uh, challenging, but I applaud my director at that time for uh, taking the bull by the horns, I'll say, and just putting us through the paces. And we'd play concerts for the parents and the community, and also once or twice a semester we'd go out into the community, play for different events, and
Hmm.
that was fun. So that kind of gave me a little taste of the, hey, doing this band thing, you get to do fun things
Hmm.
and go places and meet people, and you play some good music, and hey, you may actually even get a meal or some free ice cream or something out of it. So that's fun. And also in the junior high era, I was introduced to musical stage. Being in the pit uh, for the music band was my first musical, and I'm sitting in the pit, and I'm assigned my part for tenor saxophone. By this time, I had switched over to tenor saxophone because I'm a big guy, and they had plenty of alto saxophones. So I was playing tenor sax, and I'm reading through my book, and all of a sudden it says clarinet. I said, I don't play clarinet. So I went home, said to my mom and my grandparents, I said, I need to get a clarinet. I'm playing in the musical. There's parts here that say that need clarinet part. I need to get a clarinet. So up to the music repairman's shop, and he had a clarinet that he had put together. It was a proofer, old proofer that the middle joint had deteriorated, it had disintegrated, and he made it into a one-piece middle body clarinet, and uh, it was put new pads in it, and he set it up for me, and it became my clarinet.
Wow. And is this the
So
guy that was down the block that was like making sure
yes,
the saxophone was working? So he was
yes,
somebody you
absolutely.
liked and trusted, and he was always watching out for you.
Oh, absolutely, completely. More stories to come on that. Well, I can tell a little bit now that when I was in high school, I auditioned for a few different honors bands, and always would take my horn up for him to go over my saxophone. Especially my senior year, I tried out. Auditioned for a district band
Hmm.
and uh, took the horn in. I was playing a Bundy 2 tenor saxophone at the time, so I'm thinking, no, it's not the best form, but I'll do my best on it. And
Right?
so I auditioned, and I got first chair in district band. So that meant I got to go on to regional band.
Yeah.
So right before regional band, take the horn back up to John at the music repair store and say, "Hey, John, can you go over this? Make sure things are good because I got to audition again." And I got first chair at regional band. And I'm thinking, hey, there's something to this. Man, the horn's not playing too bad. Of course, I'm going up against kids playing cuff and Kyle Worth and different better instruments than I have. And after getting the first chair regional band, I am available to go to all state band for Pennsylvania, and this is 1984. So I find out when I go to all state band, there's three other tenor saxophone players.
Hmm.
There's a guy playing a professional Yamaha, another kid playing a professional Kyle Worth, and then
Wow.
no, it was a Yanagisawa. I'm sorry, and then a kid playing a Selmer.
Are you playing on one of the school's horns at this point? Because you were playing on your parents' horn up until the
I,
out.
my parents actually purchased me a Bundy 2 tenor saxophone when
That's
I
right.
went into to junior high
Okay.
with my grandparents.
Hmm.
And so, that was very special to me because that was a bit of change at the time for them. And there was only one tenor saxophone that came into the state of Pennsylvania for Christmas that year after my mother wrote a letter to the president of the Selmer company in the United States
Yeah.
and got a reply.
Wow.
He actually got a reply from the president, and just saying how much he was pleased. He liked the saxophone so much, we wanted to have it, and he was going to do everything in his power to get a saxophone to me for Christmas, and it happened.
That's awesome.
So with that kind of karma going on, it's kind of neat that I've kept going playing. So I get through high school. I've made first chair all state band that year as well on my Bundy 2. Pretty
Hmm.
happy with that. My first year out of high school, I graduate and I go to the local campus for Penn State. There's no music program. I had no musical outlet for myself.
Yeah.
Uh, and at that time,
How did that happen?
well, it was primarily financial,
Yeah.
because of the thought about how to cover tuition and living expenses to move to the University Park campus, even though it was like 50 miles away.
Yeah.
Still, that was a bit much. I mean, my at the time, my mom and dad were both working. My dad was a blue collar maintenance type of worker
Yeah.
for maintenance technician for the a railroad tank car repair shop in Juniata, which is a suburb of Altoona. And my mom was an insurance agent with a local insurance office in downtown Altoona. So I mean, they were able to provide and make a good living for us. But my going to college was a bit of a strain and a stress on the family finances. So for the first year, living at home and going to school was a bit of a cost savings move for my family, as well as being an opportunity for me to try to pick up some easy credits. Although I started out in engineering and nothing was easy. So
Engineering's hard, right?
yeah, after well, during this year and finding out, I'm just kind of not feeling it. My parents were a little concerned that they wanted me to keep going, and they realized how important music was in my life.
I'm curious about like it seems like music was a really central theme. And I mean, we obviously, toot your own horn is about your pathway in
Sure.
music, but it's interesting that you obviously were very strong at math and you obviously had a science background. You were interested in,
Yeah.
that kind of that too. And so
Hmm.
it obviously was a practical choice to go into engineering. But talk a little bit about
Correct.
how that decision was made to like veer away from music. Like how did that decision get made?
Well, it's funny you say about veering away from music. The Altoona community was built on the Pennsylvania Railroad set up their shops in the Altoona area. But when they brought in the workers from Europe and various places, those people came over. They brought their traditions, they brought their talents, they brought their skills with them. So
Right.
during the week, they would, work for the railroad, but on the weekends, they made music. They did other different things. And I
Oh,
thought,
okay.
that's not bad. If I would be able to do something like that, that would that would kill two birds with one stone in my thoughts. Um,
So were you thinking when
uh,
you went to school that you didn't have to have it at school because you could just do it on the weekends and that you didn't need to be part of your education anymore? Or how did that disconnect happen there?
well, when I went to school, the schedule that was set up was very heavy on the basic courses, the math, the science, the degree requirements that were very STEM oriented. With that in place, the program of study which I chose, chemical engineering, it really didn't have much flexibility or open space to fit other
Anything
things
else?
in.
Yeah.
Right. And my parents, well, of course, as they would, they wanted better for me than they thought they had with their lives, although they had good lives and they had very fulfilling careers and they got to do things. But they wanted me to be a little bit more so. So,
Right.
and they said that here's what an engineer will earn, and here's what say a music teacher or a musician might earn.
Did you guys talk
And
about that?
we did. In fact, in was it junior high or high school? One of my classes actually had us determine do a report, like a serious research report on careers, and that was
Okay.
kind of eye opening for me. So that kind of made me feel a little bit scared. I'll be honest with you. I was afraid that if I had to rely on my talent
Mhm.
and doing what I was doing to sustain myself and such, I didn't want to come to resent that I'm maybe not the best. Maybe that other people are doing something better than me, that they can do something that I can't. And I thought, I'm good at what I do.
Because the primary pathways that most people talk about when they say be a musician is either to teach or to perform. That's it.
Exactly. And that's pretty much what I researched is that you teach, you perform,
There's nothing, they don't
And
talk about industry, they don't talk about repairing, they don't talk about the other
no,
places where there are opportunities to make significant amounts of money. They just, because
right,
there's not enough people talking about them. So I understand.
exactly. I did broach the subject with my repairman up the street about what's involved with being a instrument repairman, and he was like, "Well, he's he's an older fella, and he had a kind of a unique personality." He told me a little bit about some of the struggles that he had, and I'd walk into his shop in his basement, and there's instruments scattered around all over the place, and people walking in and out, band directors. I got to know so many people there by just hanging around,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking, I don't know if my wife or my kids or my family would really put up with this kind of thing in our basement.
Mhm.
But I look at that and I think, I like now that I'm looking back at it after several years and thinking that I would have liked the hands-on opportunity to do a little bit more work with you know, instrumentation, instrument repair. My local instrument repairman here in Central North Carolina, she's fantastic. Melody Choplin at Carolina Brass and Woodwind. Yeah, I've gotten to know her very well and walk into her shop, and it's the same thing. Instruments everywhere, and get a chance to interplay with her. But I think at least being somewhat knowledgeable about the ins and outs, the workings of the instrument, and being able to describe the issues that I'm having of maybe a little bit of key play or certain notes being stuffy or not speaking well. That also helps out in that particular venue when I go in to get my horns to be serviced. But that's you're right. The limitations of just saying, well, you're either going to be a teacher or a performer in the music industry, that's very limiting.
So that really was, I guess, just to go back to picking up from where you left off, that was the pivotal point where you realized, well, that wasn't a good choice, and so that's how you made the choice to go into towards chemical engineering.
That's correct. That is
Yeah.
correct.
And so then when you went into school and there was no music, I want you to keep telling your story because I'm curious to
Sure.
hear that. So you went and you realized that there was no music. So go on from there. So then what did you do?
Well, reached out to the secondary education music supervisor for the Altoona schools, who had been the elementary supervisor of music when I was going up through school, and she knew me very well. And she had some connections to the Penn State School of Music. She specifically reached out to Dr. Ned Deal as director of the Penn State Blue Band.
Mhm.
And so I'm sitting at home one day after classes. The phone rings. I pick up the phone, and Dr. Deal called me to set up an interview and in an audition to come up to interview for or to audition for the opportunity to be in the Penn State band,
Awesome.
a Penn State band. So that brightened my spirits quite a lot. I spoke with my parents about this. They were all for it. They realized that the course study that I was had I needed to go to the University Park campus, and that this was an opportunity for me to go up there, get involved, get put into a situation where I get to know people, have support, uh, just be able to express myself
Mhm.
and do so with my instrument. So I um, went to my scheduled audition with Dr. Deal. He pulled out some of the Penn State concert band music, one of which was Incantation and Dance,
Mhm.
which I looked at and I said, "Oh, I played this in high school. In fact, I played the bass clarinet solo on this in high school." So he picked that up and put it away. Didn't have a chance to play that one. The audition went for about an hour, after which he says, "Well, Mr. Yingling, I believe that we would have a place for you somewhere in one of our bands here at Penn State." And that just made me feel fantastic. And so immediately I thought, well, I'm going to go up and I'm going to try out to be in the marching blue band. I want to march for Penn State. My junior high school band uniforms looked like little baby blue band uniforms because they were blue with the white overlay with an R on them for Roosevelt rather than PS, which was kind of funny because the director uh, was also a blue band alumnus for my junior high. So I'm all excited. I'm going through the summer and saying, I'm going to be in the blue band. I'm going to be in the blue band. best friend up the road, up the block there on the trumpet, he had already gone up the first year to audition, and he was trying to tell me, he says, "Yeah, it's not a done deal, Rob. You have to go in. You have to not only do you have to play, you have to march and make it through all those." And I'm thinking, come on, I can do that. And it was a week and a half of, well, I'm not going to liken it to boot camp, but it was pretty strenuous. Fortunately, there were openings for enough saxophones that I was the first tenor saxophone selected as a rookie, placed into one of the ranks. Very happy about that. Got to start to meet some people in the marching band. Specifically, the first person I actually met was he became my section leader for saxophones in the blue band. Also became my big brother through Phi Mu Alpha. His name is Greg Graham, another fine saxophone player, excellent all around musician, plays woodwinds. He plays keyboard instruments, which I've I joke around. I say the world has plenty of piano players. I don't need to be one. So besides, my fingers are much too short to be much of use on piano. Um, a joke about that is when I started uh, in junior high, they looked at my size and says, "Oh, you can play bari sax." Well, I tried to play bari sax, and my hands weren't big enough to reach all the keys.
Right.
So
I was
got
gonna
to stay
say,
with tenor.
yeah, I understand. So did you actually then switch schools?
Well, the it was a challenge in that once the branch campus of Penn State in Altoona had a hold of you, they like to keep you for 2 years. I had to kind of do an end around, pull some strings, and the blue band actually went in and says, "Hey, you know what? He's going to be in the blue band. We're going to transfer him up from Altoona to the University Park campus because we
Okay.
can do that." And so I also have the official recognition of being the only person to transfer from a branch campus to the University Park campus as a sophomore through the Blue Band Special Admissions audition.
Wow. So
So
there's a real testament to like, you don't really realize the hook music has on you until all of a sudden it isn't there.
yeah, that is true. And making that step to the next level was very it was very eye-opening as well for me. I got to realize that uh, the directors that I had in the past were kind of, I don't want to say coddling, but they were a safe, comfortable place. That didn't feel that way initially at Penn State, especially when I tried out for the jazz ensemble. We had a new jazz ensemble director at that time who was also a saxophone player, and he was looking to build his studio and start coming in, going doing great things. And I thought, well, here's my chance to just come in and I'll play and things will be great. And then I realized that okay, this is kind of competing with the engineering side of my studies.
Hmm.
Uh, I can do something music, but I can't do all the music all the time
Hmm.
because I won't be able to really be able to focus on my engineering enough. I like to joke around that the movie Whiplash is kind of near and dear to me because I lived it. Uh, that's kind of what it felt like to me is that the director at the time just made me feel like the jazz studies was his focus. It should become my primary focus, and nothing else should matter. Whereas I like to think to myself that I like to have a wide variety of musical experiences.
Hmm.
Uh, the opportunity to play in the marching band and go on different trips and meet people, go places. Jazz is a lot of fun, and you get to do some things there, but I thought that it was going to take a little bit more effort than I was able to give it.
I was a music major at Northwestern, right?
Hmm. Okay.
But I will tell you that I had a really strong interest in both French and in entrepreneurship. And
Hmm.
while
Yeah.
Kellogg was a graduate program, I had a lot of friends over at in Kellogg, and it was difficult because Northwestern was very fussy about letting me take a lot of elective classes outside of the School of Music and
Yeah.
not wanting me to invest a lot of time in classes that were not music oriented. And I
Yes.
had to really fight. to be able to take classes that were outside of it because I had a lot of different interests. And I know in entrepreneurship land, there are a lot of people, just like chemical engineering or any other field, where there's a lot of people that play music that are really, that play exceptionally well, that were never music majors, right? And so it's really important for all of you listening that hire people who have interests in music or might have interest in music to recognize, let them play, you know, don't,
Thank you.
don't
Thank you
put
for
up
saying that.
barriers, you know,
Exactly, Lisa.
it's really
That's what
killed
I
for
came to
them.
find out. Yes, exactly. That's what I came to find out when I joined the marching blue band, is that the variety of people who were in the band who were not strictly focused on being music educators or music performers was astounding. If I needed help with secondary differential equations in one of my math classes, one of my brothers in Phi Mu Alpha was a an actuarial major who was taking the same class for fun that
Mhm,
I was barely keeping my head above water in. And
mhm,
he worked with me on that to help me pass that class. If I needed help with something else, health class, uh, there were other members there who were in the health fields that were able to help me study for that, and vice versa. I would, you know, provide them. I was a resource for them to help them, ironically, study for some of their music electives,
mhm.
and that was kind of funny.
How do you think music has helped you in your career to advance and strengthen your profession?
Well, certainly it gives me the fortitude to overcome any type of difficulties. Something doesn't go exactly to plan. I realize that, life is going to continue to go on, and there's always an opportunity to go forward and do something to change that situation.
If somebody was listening to this thinking, gosh, maybe I would be interested in trying to play a musical instrument, what would you tell them about getting started? Like, what would you say to them to try to get them to do it?
The first thing I would tell them to do is to listen. What kind of music do you enjoy the most? Listen to some other kinds of music. What kind of instruments do you think appeal to you the most? A friend of mine from my last company reached out to me because he was just playing to start saxophone. And we started doing this type of meeting over Zoom or Teams, where he would be on in one location, I would be in another, and I'd have the saxophone out, try to show him some different things about how to play the saxophone, try to express to him some of the um, salient features that are required to produce a pleasing saxophone sound, because, well, we've all been around folks that do not produce pleasing saxophone sound. That's unfortunate, but just I would suggest that they go and try it out. I mean, go to a local music store, see about renting a an instrument to start, because uh, that instrument will be in good repair.
When you start to play a musical instrument, it starts to come out of you and you start to get more and more engaged and it's a process, right? And
Absolutely,
it's like
absolutely.
it's
The
like turning.
engagement is there.
That's right. It's like turning the water on and getting the water to start to run. And if you like the sound of the instrument, you'll get over the embarrassment of having to learn how to blow in it and make the sounds on it, and you'll get more and more comfortable. And so you have to hang around and find somebody who knows how to make the sounds, and it might be your friend or it might be a colleague, or just somebody at first,
Yeah,
and then you'll
yeah.
eventually you'll find a teacher, you'll find an ensemble to play in. But I've had many a call where people have said, "Oh, this is so weird. I don't know what to do." And that's cool. Like it's just fine to not know what to do.
Hmm.
More important, you just start.
Just start. Just find an instrument. Make sure it plays. Ask
Right,
somebody who's
right.
knowledgeable to get with you to check things out. It's just the benefits are out there. The emotional, mental, physical, maybe financial benefits are out there, but it's going to take significant effort to get to that point. Get a little bit of instruction, because I think self help is great, but it helps even more to have somebody who's a little bit more knowledgeable to help guide you to that place where you want to get to.
In music, it's one of the places you can be seen and heard and have your voice be counted, and you can actually weigh in, And so
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The musical experience is made up of the musicians who are performing and the audience who is receiving. So there's give and take both ways. If the musicians aren't doing what they're expected to do, the audience is going to let them know, and that can be a less than an enthralling experience. But by the same token, that sort of feedback also can help shape and improve the musical experience that comes forth. So